let my co-host to introduce themselves. Then I will start with the ground rules. Bishop, can you go?
Yes, good afternoon. Well, actually, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for tuning in to this tremendous program, interviewing one of our stars, Michelle DuBois, a state representative here out of Brockton, out of the 10th Plymouth. So I'm Bishop Tony Branch, and I thank you for allowing me to join you all to ask you some important questions.
Thank you, Thank you, Tony. Angel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Angel Cosme. I am happy to be here today with Representative DuBois and my colleagues here. I am a member of Brockton Interfaith Community. I'm also employed with Brockton Public Schools, a community activist, if you will, for a number of years, and just a concerned citizen. Happy to be here.
Thank you, guys. I'm very thrilled to have two of my confident with me, Angel and Tony. We're gonna have a live discussion, so I know that the community will appreciate that, talking about the issues in the community. So that will be part of our town hall today. So I'm going with the ground hall. Michelle, so you will have 2 minutes to introduce yourself for open statement, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer each question, and 1 minute for follow-up questions. And then after that, you will have 2 minutes for conclusions. You agree with those rules?
Yes, I am. I'm very happy to be here.
All right, Michelle, we're gonna let you start. So it's a pleasure to have you on today. So it's a privilege to have you as our guest. So I'll give you the floor so you can introduce yourself and give us a little bit background of yourself.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to start right off, and I want to thank Angel, Marline, and Bishop Branch for, participating in this dialogue with me and everybody that's at home. It's been a really wacky time, as I'm sure everybody on this call and everybody at home knows for sure. Who would ever know we could live like we're living today? And God bless everyone. If anyone needs any help with unemployment, COVID-related problems, please call my cell phone, 774-274-1344. I spend a lot of my time doing constituent services since March. There's a lot of need in the community, and there are a lot of people standing up, every single person here on this panel, and so many hundreds of people and thousands of people in Brockton and across this Commonwealth. And I'm just one part of it. And so I am honored to be your state representative. I am in my 3rd term. I've really focused on open, transparent government, really listening to what and respecting what my neighbors, their opinions, how they want to live, what they want to see in their communities, which brought me to caring about our air. I have asthma. So many people I know have asthma. I got my start. I grew up in Brockton, went to Brockton Public Schools, got my start in public service kind of through grassroots activism and trying to stop a garbage transfer station. I became a city councilor. I really focused on fixing services that were broken down, like our water billing services, getting people justice when they were getting $100,000 fraudulent water bills and the city wasn't listening. I think I've proven myself to be someone that cares about the working class person. I saw growing up with my parents and how so much of a life was a struggle, and so many things that happened that were very hard to deal with and contend with. And that's what our people here in Brockton, that is our lives, and they're beautiful lives, but they're lives that just like very wealthy people need tax breaks, people that are working people need help sometimes. And it's just like the tax break you give or the subsidy you give for someone to buy an electric vehicle. Nobody here, and I don't know how many people in Brockton got any benefit from that subsidy. We need things in Brockton like raising the cap on kids to allow people, if they have another child, to be able to collect welfare, small pittance of money so their child can get diapers and formula and live with some level of dignity. So these are the things I'd like to fight for. And there's a lot more to do. So that's why I'm running again. And I'm asking everybody at home to consider giving me your vote. I ask you for your vote. I'm really in this, like, really for the good. and I hope that you'll consider giving me your vote on September 1. That's the most important election, is September 1.
Good, good, good. Thank you, Michelle, for this introduction. So therefore, Michelle, we're going to start with a batch of questions. Just put in mind, this is not a Q&A conversation. It should be a fluid conversation where you feel comfortable to answer a question and go. It's a dialogue. So I just want to put you at ease. And also, I know that you.
That's what I was doing when I gave my introduction. Trying to be
definitely.
It's a hard.
So, but I know that you are in session, so at any given moment that you might put yourself on mute. There you go.
And then I'm watching on television.
There you go.
I cast the proceedings at the State House from my computer, and I listen on my phone, and there are 20 other legislators that are on the phone right now. They can't hear us, we can't hear them. And then when any action happens and it comes to a vote, I might have to black out the TV, go silent, say here, and vote on we're voting on, but it might not come because
I'm glad that we can put that.
Yeah,
I'm glad that we can put that in forefront for the listeners to know that when you're not on the screen with us, we know that you are voting. So we're going to start with Bishop. Bishop will ask you a line of questions on housing. So Bishop, you have the floor right now.
So, Michelle, we know that both the work you and I have done over the years, that affordable housing is something that is significant, not only to Black and Brown communities, but quite frankly, to the middle class that are a part of Plymouth County. In saying that, we know that we're going through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we know that the state legislator, and with the success of the governor of the Commonwealth signing off, that there is what they call a rental and foreclosure moratorium. Many families are unable to pay their rent. Many families are unable to pay their mortgage even after that moratorium. Could you give us an example of what you're suggesting in terms of what sort of relief may be available to them post-pandemic?
So there's a lot of need here, and I think I don't even know if I can go as far as post-pandemic, because it may be, I don't know, a year, and people could be in a lot of even more trouble. So I get a lot of calls from people that are very proud and don't want to be behind on their mortgage, or just totally freaked out about the idea of falling behind on their mortgage. And certain people have different levels of stress, and they realize different fiscal realities and withstand them differently. And one person, but there's a lot of people that are not able to pay their rent. And so we've helped quite a few people apply for RAFT. When this all started, so living in Brockton, we're so much closer to, I guess, reality for such a big percentage of our citizens, but not a big percentage of the legislature. So I live in a house, it's like 900 square feet. It's got a lot of my chimneys falling off. I'm gonna get it fixed, I am. But it's just like, it's not dangerous, but I'm not using my chimneys. So the world we're living in is a little bit less affluent. And so we have this issue of people not being able to pay their rent, even on a good day when they have 2 or 3 jobs working at Dunkin' Donuts or whatever job. I think all work is dignified. That's just how I feel about it. And they can't string it together. And now we have COVID, and a lot of these folks have gotten caught up in the whole you can't verify who you are business. And we have over 300 people we've helped since the beginning of the pandemic with their unemployment, but that also wraps into the housing. And so when this all struck, Mike Connolly, the state rep from Summerville, and I really got together on the first letter that went out to the governor on making sure that we do something about a moratorium so people don't become homeless. I was a little buffered by the fact that the courts were closed, and I know some people don't have a lot of faith in the courts, but if something has to happen fast, and those judges have to be before, the normal people, they're gonna make sure that the COVID, is protected. So when they closed the courts, I thought that there was some modicum of protection for people, because you can't kick someone out if the court's closed. So I thought that was, a proper response for a pandemic crisis. And now as we're going in, then as we were moving into it, I have a social service, like nonprofit administration background. So the RAF program, I learned a lot about that. That's rental assistance for people to get behind. You go to neighborhood. Neighbor Works, thank you, Marlene. And they will help you fill it out. We've helped people fill it out. And at the beginning, there was like one guy, he's a single dad, he has 3 kids, and he was like $2,000 over the 40% median income for the cutoff. And I'm like, I started talking to everybody about that, brought it up to the speaker on several calls, and then talked to the mayor about it as well. And he was on it already, and money that came through CDBG money, they expanded it for back due rent from 40 to 80% of the state median, which made this gentleman qualify, but he still hasn't been approved. And it's already been, we've been working with him and his sister and his sister's mom, who are also having unemployment issues and different things, different issues that this crisis brings, be it daycare.
So Representative, let me just ask you, you just said, so you were able to work on this particular issue to evolution, and then something happened positive with respect to what's going on with the Brockton Redevelopment Authority and that CBDG money. But you also just said he still hasn't been approved. Are we providing hiccups in the system that are hurting working class families in our city?
So sometimes I think it's kind of like on plan with like the whole prove yourself, and nobody has a driver's license, you don't have an ID, you're homeless, how do you get your social security card, does it cost any money? Because I don't have any money. Nobody has a computer. Like so many of my constituents don't. God bless you, I love you still. And we literally fill out the food stamp application, everything. So we're following up for him to figure out what the holdup is. I know for a while that CDBG money was coming in, but now I'm starting to think that there's another hiccup in the system. Like we might have one, and the next one might be the fact that I don't know if all the landlords are really filling out the paperwork that RAFT is requiring in order to be able to pay the back due rent. And if they don't fill out the paperwork, then the tenant can't get the RAF money, and they continue to be negative. And then, so I think that we're going to have to look at, and it's a federal program, and there's some state elements because there's state money, onto like, how can we, you can't circumvent the landlord, but how can we lessen the paperwork that they have to submit? Because it's almost like some people want their tenants to maybe.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about as a person that works hard with families in the housing court. I can tell you what it sounds like, and we're going to have to set this up as a defense that they, in fact, that they apply for RAFT, and the landlord is saying, "No, I just really want the person out." If that makes a little bit of sense.
They never say it.
Yeah, right. They don't. Right. Go ahead, Marlene.
I hope. No, I was saying to Michelle. So, but my point is, what about the people that hold the mortgage? So, what's in it for those people that hold the mortgage?
See, that's the thing, Marlene. And when this all came up, so from my point of view, first off, the housing court being closed was such a protection because I had worked in school services and I knew that it was, but maybe the average person would be still afraid. So when Mike and I were pushing the governor for this moratorium, and we wrote this letter, and a whole bunch of like 30 something of our colleagues signed on to the letter. And then he followed and did what only 30 of us asked him to do. So that was another win. But even when we were doing the moratorium that set a defined timeline, I was concerned for the smaller landlords and the landlords. And I'm always wondering what the scam is. And I started thinking that, like, if they don't pay their rent and the landlords lose their property, then we're going to have a whole nother round of what we saw in the 80s. And then like 12 years ago, where a whole bunch of people lose their homes and a whole folks from outside of the city come in and purchase it on the low and then appreciate on the high. And then we'll have more rental properties of homes. And then with this zoning change that we're voting on tonight, there's a possibility of more problems. So it's always one thing leads to another. And I am concerned for small property owners. We're going to have to come up with some kind of a system. One of my bills that I think is really smart around foreclosure banks, when you don't know who owns them, and creating this foreclosure
bubble
receptor, like a foreclosure, like a bank account that people can pay their mortgages into when we don't know who owns the mortgage, instead of just assigning it to a company, like, here's a bunch of money.
But Michelle, I just want.
So we have to have some kind of subsidy for the property owners that gives them money in their pocket, because if we don't do that, we're going to lose our whole understanding of owning home ownership. So it's critical.
But Michelle, so when you're talking about who owned the mortgage, remember 2007, that was a crisis about the mortgage, the mortgage industry. So 2007, and we are in 2020, and then we're still talking about regulation in the housing. So I think that we need to do better than that.
Oh, we do.
We need to have a better system that can help us, we the minority, we people of color, to move into the ladder. So otherwise, we're gonna be continuously, the pandemic is one crisis, the housing mortgage was one crisis in 2007. And with the pandemic, we might go to an housing crisis after the pandemic. So we still don't have any regulation for this industry. I think we need to have with a concrete and complete plan to see how we can help our community.
I agree with you.
You don't have anything to say on that? No?
I do have something to say on that. You know what it is, and I don't have a solution for it. I want a solution, but the HEROES Act does have a lot of money in that bill, the federal bill, to help property owners and mortgage issues. And I think that if that gets passed, it will be helpful. It also has a lot of money for schools. Mm-hmm. But there are projects at the state level and funding at the state level to help folks in this kind of like 3-family landlord or 5 different property situation. But I don't have an answer to that. It is a problem. I am trying to delve into how we can best set up a structure. Some of the real estate, so there's some folks that say it's the extending the mortgage, the foreclosure and the eviction moratorium a year. So I really, if you look at the numbers of sponsors it has a lot of sponsors. I think I'm one of the last people to go on that bill. And I think it's the reason I did that is because I have such a problem with extending a rental non-payment of rent situation for a year. But I have, oh, that's my fan. I'm a fangirl. I have more of a problem with letting families become homeless. And it's almost like, if I can get some stabilization around this family in this rental unit, and we can get some subsidies to the landlord and make it through this crisis, I know the people in that rental unit want to work. Yeah. And it's just, we have to figure it out. But I don't want it to be like, you know, the people that are just out of, you know, just not even really making it, but they have a few rental properties, that they are the ones that are left holding the bag, because in so many cases, you know, they were renters not too long ago themselves, and this is a strategy for them to be able to make a better life for them and their families. But it's such a delicate balance, and there's a lot of money that we're talking about bonding out, and I really think that if we can subsidize this RAFT program enough for the renters, and the landlords would fill out the forms, then we'd be able to do that. But human nature gets involved, and everybody worries about their fiscal health of themselves and their families. So it's a delicate balance. So I signed on to that because I knew there needs to be something done about it. I was really glad to see that the governor extended the foreclosure moratorium for 3 more months, and not like a year. I really think we need to do it in its small increments as possible until we come up with a plan that better, like once unemployment goes to 200 and not 600 extra, we're going to have a whole nother problem.
Right.
I know. So we're going to come back on housing. So we're just going to try to segue to another topic right now. So I'm going to let Angel segue to the social justice piece and see what his question was.
Thank you. I think it was an interesting conversation so far. We definitely need to find a solution, both for the renters and the landlords on that situation. As you may know, I work with Brockton Interfaith Community with the mutual aid program, and we've gotten about 1,500 responders from the Brockton community. One of the biggest things that we're seeing is food insecurity from families, but the other thing is need for rental assistance and utility assistance. So it'll be great if we could figure that out collectively. So my question has to do with the sort of the racial justice movements that have been happening across the country. And so Representative DuBois, I just want to ask if you support the Black Lives Movement, and in what particular ways do you support racial justice locally in Brockton?
So I support the Black Lives Matter movement. Yes, I do. I think that what's going on with the movement is that there are people that want to be treated, I don't know, like people should be treated for hundreds and hundreds of years, but that has not been the case for so many people, brown and Black people in our communities and across this world. So I can understand, and this is going to be kind of maybe seem ageist, I don't know, but I just feel like here I am, I'm a 48-year-old woman, I'm vegetarian, I've always felt to be a racial justice advocate and grassroots activist myself. And so I embrace the bottom-up democracy, and I embrace the idea that these same people, different bodies and different human people, but like these same people were asking for these same little protections decades ago and wasn't delivered. And so here I am in this, it's a position of power that I'm grateful that the people have bestowed upon me so I can utilize to fight for justice. And so I think even though it's hard, I got to do it because it's right. So I support it. When people tell me that it's like a hate group, I always say, listen, I don't condone any violence. I never have. I never will. I don't condone it at all. And I still support the Black Lives Matter movement without supporting any of the violence, because I get to do that because I'm a human being, and everybody gets to do that. Everybody can be as anti-racist as we want to be. And I've decided that I am going to be vehemently anti-racist in the nicest way I can be. And so that is what my position in this whole struggle is going to be. Win or lose, that is something that I'm okay with, because, if I don't kill an ant, I sure as heck need to stand up for another human being that's saying I'm not being treated right here. Like, what's wrong with our society? And so we have a lot of work to do. And there's a lot of anger on both sides, which is really weird. And I don't even know what side it is. Like, I'm on the anti-racist side. That's the side I'm on. And so that's what I tell people. And so it's a real interesting, I've got a philosophy degree, so this is just like right up my alley in discourse about how we should try to love each other more. And I got a sign on my fence that says, love thy neighbor, stop racism. And I put that sign up, even though, because I want my neighbors to know that I think we are all equal, and I see the burden that other people carry, and I don't think it's right, and I don't want to put any more burden on you. And so that's why I put it up, and so I'm on board.
Thank you. If I could just ask a follow-up question to that. There's something locally that has been gaining some controversy, if you will, and I'm a part of that for being someone who invited all the elected officials, including yourself, to an event happening on Thursday from this newly formed DARK coalition, which stands for Demilitarize, Accountability, Reallocation, Reimagination Community Coalition. It's been a group that's been meeting publicly in front of City Hall for several weeks. Bishop Branch, I know you talked about it in your radio show recently as well. A couple of the city councilors, like Wynn Farrell, was pretty oppositional, vocal about that. So my first question to you, just as a follow-up, is will you be able to attend that scorecard meeting where we're posing some questions to certain individuals, four in particular, the city councilor, president, the chief of police, the mayor, and the superintendent. Everyone else is invited sort of to have a discussion, but just wanted to know if you would be in attendance.
So I know it's in my calendar, and when I saw it, I thought, Oh, good. I'll go to that. That's what I that's what I thought. And, you know, oh, good. I'll go to that. That's good. So 6:30 to 8. If I don't have this formal session that I'm in right now, it would be very hard for me to go into a public space with like this on my phone and this in my ear and walk around and not be able to, like, people would think I was being really rude. And I wouldn't want that. But if this is over, I will be there. And even if I have to sit in my car in a little bit to finish it up, or maybe I'll run in and out. I think it's a good effort. I support it. Locally, I would say I've done a lot of work in the world of environmental justice locally. Stopping a garbage transfer station, no human waste, no 100 diesel trucks in and out of our community because the community came together as a grassroots effort and stopped it. We've 15 years stopping a disgusting, dirty natural gas power plant. PM 2.5 comes out of power plants. It's the small particle that gets deep into your lungs. PM 2.5 exposure, even at a little bit higher of a level, is a 15% more fatality chance if you get COVID, because it damages your, PM 2.5 damages your lungs, your heart, and your arteries. So diabetes, PM 2.5 causes diabetes. If you get COVID-19, you have diabetes, you have worse health outcomes. I have asthma. If I get COVID, I could have a worse health outcome. So there's like, so we stop that. So environmental justice is the protection of people that are low income and communities of color, not to have to bear the brunt of all the state's garbage, burning facilities, things that give your kid asthma, they can't breathe at night. My mom used to have to rush me into the hospital in the middle of the night. I was a cute little kid, couldn't breathe. That's terrible. So those areas are areas that have this, you know, low income communities of color. We are the same in so many ways. And the fact that we haven't come together in Brockton, and I know we have in a lot of communities, and said, it's us here in Brockton, us, you know, what you consider unimportant people, us people of color, us low-income people, us low-power people that you don't think matter, that are the team. We're not going to divide up here so you guys can have even more power. So that's like where I see it. So it's unfortunate that not everybody sees it that way, but I am told often that I am not your average politician. So that's how I see it. From my perspective, what you're doing is wonderful, and we need more dialogue and not less dialogue. I don't agree with, I don't want to defund police. I understand that defund does not mean really defund, so there's no more police, but I think that the work that needs to be done is a focus on education and things like that, but it might cost more money to get the police to where we need them to be. And I know that makes a lot of people really pissed off. And, you know, that's because decades ago when people were asking for these changes, nobody listened and nobody did anything. And now we have to do something, because I'm not going to be that generation that looked at my fellow human being in the eye and say, forget you, there's no problem, get over it. That just isn't, it's not what, that isn't how I was brought up. I'm not going to participate in it. So I'm happy to help out as much as I can and still like police. I think I can do both. And even some, you know, even if someone makes a mistake, I'm not saying that, you know, a critical mistake, but like a mistake and there's an apology and there's changed behavior. I'm looking for change behavior, change requirements, better standards, more protection, get rid of the war on drug laws that have these no-knock warrants. So you do a no-knock warrant because someone might dump some pot down the toilet, and that if it's gonna jeopardize the police officer's life, all right. I mean, that I would prefer you not do the no-knock if it's gonna jeopardize someone's life. To be honest with you, a police officer, can't you get them somewhere else? That's my mentality. Even more de-escalation. But the idea that we're gonna let you know, well-armed professionals go into a house where there might be a little 3-year-old running around and accidentally hurt the 3-year-old, I don't think that's good for that family. I don't think it's good for anybody on that SWAT team that just went into a house and they have kids too and accidentally killed somebody's kid. None of this is good. So we have to reevaluate the laws that us legislators tell the police that they have to act out in our communities. So I see it as my responsibility to make these laws that then the police can say, wow, I'm actually safer now. And so that's what I'm looking to do. In our community, safer.
Thank you for your reply.
Thank you, Michelle. So, Michelle, as you know, the injustice is not only from, the social justice, it's from the housing, it's from education, it's from health. So, as you know, the pandemic revealed flaws in the education systems. So, COVID-19 is one of the emerging infectious diseases. We do not yet know when it will go out, right? So, however, a similar pandemic can happen in the future. So should we adapt our education system to this new reality? If so, what is your vision?
You know, it's such a difficult situation. I believe that, and this is, I know I don't have children, so I will just put that out there. So I read in this, I care about your children, but I just want to let everybody know I'm not trying to act like an expert here. But what I think is we are in a global pandemic, and every single parent out there is doing the best that they can do. 99.9% of the parents out there are doing the best they can do. And so your child, most likely, unless you're very lucky and you have two very well-educated parents that have like very calm demeanors and all this other stuff, is not going to be able to replace a teacher unless you do a whiz kid. Like some kids are just whiz kids. They can do online, and God bless you, great. And if we can move kids that way, I think every child should be able to have a computer, to learn about it, to learn from that. And we need to make sure as a society we make that happen in low-income communities. I think wireless should be free. I don't even understand why there is a fee for it. I think that we need to get to a spot where we can have free wireless. I mean, I don't understand. It doesn't cost. It doesn't come through a wire, So I think that we need to move to these more egalitarian models of service provision, so our people can live a full, productive life. But concerning COVID, I think that parents and the school system have to just accept that there is going to be some learning loss. And so when I talk to people and they say, "Well, I don't want my child to fall behind," I have to try to remind them, and sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't, that every single person's child on the planet right now is going to be delayed, most likely. And the haves are going to have it better, and the have-nots are going to have it worse. And we need to try to blunt that for the folks that need it the most. I'm not looking to tear anybody down, because that isn't my model of being. But I am there I want to make sure that the folks that need help can get it. And if they don't, but we also have to understand that when you don't have any food, and food insecurity, and your rent insecurity, and maybe your environment isn't the safest place, and there are issues that are going on outside. I mean, I just helped a woman who was living in a hotel, and her husband was violent, and kids were there. And there's a lot of domestic violence going on. There's a lot of homelessness. I have a gentleman who is having his driver's license mailed to my home. So there's a lot going on that we need to address, and it's a scary time.
But Michelle, as a legislator, so this is your job and your role to work in collaboration with your community and to come with laws that will help us take away those barriers. So I don't know, what is your plan? What you plan? Do you have a plan to work on certain bill to address those issues?
So, well, my biggest plan was delivering $2.4 billion to public education through the Student Opportunity Act. That was a 4-year effort. One of my bills was brought into the major funding bill. We have to make sure that that money gets promised. I'm really pushing to get a promise from the legislature that they will fund the first year of the Student Opportunity Act during this pandemic, either with the HEROES money if it comes through, or through bonding and borrowing from the rainy day fund. We cannot be raising taxes unless it's the millionaire's tax on people during this most difficult time, which is why I crossed the aisle and I voted no on the gas tax, because I understand from a working person's perspective, as an example, the $250 that was just added to every single homeowner's yearly bill through a made-up water sewer fee that's being enacted after the November election, but has already been voted on. For a lot of people, that is going to cause some hardship, and I would have never supported that. That is not the type of person I am. There are solutions. We have to find them, and they shouldn't be that the poorest among us have to pay more for less. And so that is a real problem. So I think that some kids are going to have to stay home for the schooling. I think that there's going to be some kind of split session. And then if COVID comes back, it's all going to go back to homebound. And this is why this problem is a federal problem. It needs a federal response. We have a governor and a legislature that are trying to solve this problem. It's a federal problem. And President Trump is abdicating his responsibility as a president by not getting his butt in gear and getting this money down into the municipalities and the cities and the towns and bulking up our medical supply and backstopping our folks that are on the front lines and giving hazard pay. And you know, sometimes it's really frustrating because you feel like they want us just to die or something. It's very frustrating. And we've got to get back.
I hear you, Michelle. So it is a federal responsibility, but when the Fed does not take the responsibility, so we as the state, we need to take that in consideration and take the responsibility for our community. Right. So again,
that's what I did. When this was coming, I had several conversations with the mayor and all the different towns that I represent, asking them about what their plans were. Brockton's school system didn't close first by accident. Like, it was one of the first school systems to close because Mike Thomas, the mayor, I feel like I had a role in it. A lot of people had a role in making sure that the school got closed early because our folks can least deal with this type of problem. When we wanted to have a shutdown, I joined with colleagues at the State House to put pressure on the governor to do that. When he was, we think he was opening up too early. When he didn't give municipal level data, that has been a fight that I've been fighting since March. And so when he finally released municipal level data, like I want to say on April 15th, it didn't have any race or ethnicity data in it. And we had already been hearing from the science that low income and communities of color were faring much further, much worse. And we started writing letters and we started being more vocal. I had a lot of problems getting the progressives up at the State House to even help me with this. This was like total Black and Latino caucus led event, and I was kind of like, you know, shotgunning it with them because I know how important this is for public health because I live here. So it's just like the driver's license for undocumented people. We live here. So if we live here and it's going to affect our neighbor who happens to be a person of color, it's going to affect me too. So it's like we have a vested interest in getting these problems. So when he waited 2 more weeks, and I want to say it was like 2 days after Mayor Sullivan's Health Equity Task Force that I believe you are on, Marlene. Yes. And I don't know, Tony, are you on?
No, I'm not on.
I know Angel has been on a couple of calls. We sent a letter saying we want this data, this race ethnicity data, and they started releasing it. And so there's a lot of pushback on a lot of levels with COVID. I want people to know that I'm working every day. This isn't like anything that I'm sitting down on my laurels and eating bonbons. I mean, it is a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. job. And on top of that, we have leadership up at the State House that knows the rules so they can break them. And they are pushing bills through right now, the police reform bill, now this huge bonding bill, that we're going to get an environment bill. There's a good chance that my environmental justice bill is going to pass on Wednesday as an amendment, maybe. Woo-hoo. That will be a big win for Brockton and for Brown and low-income communities. I don't know. I'm hoping it's going to happen. I've heard maybe. So I don't know. But we're working really hard on it. And then we don't have the budget done yet. I'm going to fight to try to get more money for playgrounds, but really the priority is going to be schools. We really need to make sure the kids' schools and that our community is safe.
Before I'm going to let Bishop goes to his second round of questions, but again, school, you know, the talk is about school open, probably hybrid or half and half or stay home. So, but again, it seems like they don't take in consideration the working parents as well. So what is it? What do you think it should be for the working parent? Because if I'm working full time and then my kids going to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, what about Thursday, Friday? So my kid's gonna be home. So I'm working 40 hours a week. And then next week, my kid's going to school Thursday, Friday. It's an example I'm giving.
Kid all over again.
What about the, so what the system in place to help those working parents? So I don't see any, they address that. So how do
I'll tell you my little part of it. I mean, there's much more I could do. I don't know if you guys know Barbara, and I'm going to feel really embarrassed if I say her name wrong. Barbara Brooks, Mrs. Brooks. She's with WIC. She's a wonderful lady. So I'll go up to West Chestnut Street, up to the WIC, the family center there.
Yeah.
And I love those ladies and gentlemen up there. They do wonderful things for families and family health. And so they have this group that meets. And I was attending those meetings. And this was like 2 years ago. But I attend them. And I still have relationships with these ladies. And they came up with this idea around giving tax breaks to corporations for the cost of installing and operating an on-site daycare for 3 years, and it's a phase out. It isn't gonna make anybody money, but it's gonna help get the site prepared, and then they can contract with like DuBois, because it gives some standards around what kind of contractor, and then it also laid out how the daycare could be affordable. So this is an example, Marlene. It's been to census study twice, but like right now, I feel like they're gonna pull it out of the study at any moment, because what a great tax break to give to corporations that can set up daycares in a fashion that are going to help their employees to be able to go back to work, some of them. And this is, again, where the federal money comes in around unemployment, because I just feel like, I hate to have the dark cloud over my head, but I mean, until we get a vaccine,
yeah.
maybe, and my doctor was like, Michelle, you're banking on a vaccine. It may never come. And I'm like, thank you for that. But like, it is a scary thing. So I do a lot of unknowns, and all I can tell the folks out there is, if you have a problem, so on this example, I kind of have an answer. My bill isn't going to solve the world, but it was talking about this need. I think anybody that works should be able to get affordable daycare. I think that limit really brings down women's productivity and men's productivity too, but specifically the moms often are the ones that give up their careers. And that's also wonderful. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but if we can get people to be able to work, if they can work and they want to work and they need to work, it would be helpful for all of our families. So I do support anything that's going to make daycare affordable for families.
Bishop, do you have a question on housing, please?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a real quick one. I know that we're pushing time, and Michelle, you're doing well, but I also wanted, for purpose of clarification, so we're doing this particular forum today, and Marlene, did you invite Jack Lally? Do we have a date for Jack Lally, or has he declined? I think that's important.
Yes, I did send an invitation to him, but I did not receive any reply from him.
All right, so we want to let people know that we are being fair and equal, that we're giving equal time to everyone with respect to this forum. Michelle, listen, I'm going to touch on the basis of the housing questions, but I wanted to step back maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about the no-knock warrants. Are you not supporting no-knock warrants? Or are you suggesting that there should be a ban?
Your microphone.
You're muted.
No-knock warrants were created in the 90s during the war on drugs.
Right.
And before that, you had this Fourth Amendment right to illegal search and seizure, and people couldn't be kicking in your door and those types of things. So when this war on drugs came, for good or for bad, but I was a baby, so I have no of the faults.
Right.
Generation. When days came in, they said a judge can issue a no-knock warrant if the officer is in fear of his or her life, if they announce themselves before they enter the house and break down the door, or if they're going to get rid of evidence, like they're going to run to the bathroom.
So that's my question, Michelle. So if that's,
I'm just going to answer this real quick. Law that we passed already strikes out the part that says you can get a no-knock warrant for if you just think that evidence is going to be hidden. You can no longer do that. If the House bill was law today, you could not get a no-knock warrant from a judge unless the officer's life was in danger, which I support. I hope we'll get to a day where the officer finds a different way to get that person without having to put their life in jeopardy. I don't support, I worry about police officers too. But then there was an amendment. And the amendment, there was an amendment to ban all no-knock warrants. I think that was withdrawn. And then State Representative Liz Miranda spoke on her amendment that said, when an officer's life is in danger and they go to a judge to get a no-knock warrant, they have to certify that to the best of their knowledge, no child or person over 65 years old is in the home while they do the no-knock warrant. So they're not going to bang down the door at 3 in the morning, sending it off of its hinge and throw it into your 85-year-old grandmother because somebody's boyfriend is sleeping in the back room and you don't live in a place that respects the law. So you shouldn't be able to get those types of no-knock warrants that are so bad, but some judges were issuing them. So we have to set a standard as legislators that say, if I'm not ready to ban no-knock warrants, but if you're gonna get them, you have to be sure that there are no kids and no seniors in the house, and that your life is in jeopardy. Otherwise, maybe we should pick the person up in a different fashion.
Right. No, I just want, so purpose of clarification, because I want to be clear to you that there are many people, there are many of your constituents that support the fact that we need to keep no-knock warrants, but we need to keep them based upon what State Representative Miranda was saying. Because, I mean, especially in the era of terrorism, I mean, not to have a no-knock warrant.
The House bill allows a police officer to go to a judge. This is always a judge. This is always from the judge, and it's always based on like some kind of legislation. So there's a lot of things that go on between that door knocking down and where this all was created. So there are a lot of hands that make this problem. So my hands are going to be making a solution, and that solution is if the officer's life's in danger, you can still go to a judge and argue for a no-knock warrant, but you have to certify that there are no babies and no seniors in the house, or you just have to get them some other way. You know, that's just the way the rules are going to be. If the House bill were law today, I voted yes. It was a very close vote. I do not want to, you know, not everybody in the delegation voted as I did, but some did, and everybody voted for the bill, though.
So when you look at moving on to affordable housing, we're looking at affordable housing, and I had mentioned earlier about the work that needs to be done post-moratorium, whether it is rental housing or whether to Marlene's point, whether there's foreclosures. One of the number one issues that people are facing is the inability to have legal representation against the banking industry and against a lot of these management companies that have top-notch lawyers here in the Commonwealth. Is there a way for there to be legislation that actually gives dollars for legal representation of those folks that are going to be facing these foreclosures and these evictions? They're losing a lot of these cases because they're not lawyers. What can you do about that?
We are currently debating bills around giving tenants in foreclosure cases and eviction cases rights to counsel. It's in the bill that we're in tonight, funding that through money in this bill that we're talking about. So we need more money in that. We do need, that is an issue. That's a big issue that the legal services community has brought up. I worked at legal services before becoming a state representative. Being a city councilor is a part-time job, so I have a full-time job and was a city councilor. And so I worked there, so I got to know more about how important the courts are around housing law and how important it is to have some legal representation, because people, you know, people that aren't lawyers or experts in that field, they need help, especially when they're in these vulnerable situations. So it's a real problem, and we need to be funding more. We know that we have that legal services in downtown Brockton, South Coastal County's Legal Services, which is www.sccls.org. They call it the Justice Center down there.
Right.
So they will present you in all matter, not only housing, but education and advocacy as well. They will help you as well.
They will, well, be careful in saying representation. representation. They'll do an intake, but they're not necessarily you're not necessarily going to get a lawyer. And this is why I'm looking at the state rep in terms of funding. So for majority of these families that are facing foreclosure, especially in that Southeastern Housing Court, get some legal representation. I'm telling you from my own observation, this is my own personal observation, that if they have counsel, a lot of these cases could be decided in the favor of the defendants. But that's I'm not a lawyer. That's my two.
You're 100% right. There's so many things.
Thank you, Michelle.
Right. It's like when I met somebody, I first became a state rep, and he's a smarty pants, a city councilor, and he said, you got to learn the rules so well that when you break them, nobody questions you. That's a cynical way of living. That is not how I live. But that's how sometimes the opponents live. Right. So sometimes it's best to know the rules, and it's hard when the rules are so complicated and you're an average person, you go before a housing court, and it's like, you got an auto mechanic, and he's like, give me a car, I'll fix the engine. But I talk before a judge, it's very difficult to transfer those skills. It is.
So, Michelle, the city of Brockton, so the Brockton Enterprise reported that the city of Brockton has some of the highest rental rates in the Commonwealth. As a matter of fact, they're saying they're almost in the United States of America, almost.
In the United States.
Yeah, in the United States, yeah.
So in the United States. So with that said, when you look at those numbers, is it time for rent control, or what are you working on in the state legislature that's going to help out these working class families in our city?
I know, we as the brown people.
Right. So I think that there are a lot of issues that roll into this. So first off, Boston is exempt from all these rules that we make to force other people to build affordable housing. And so one element of it in this bill that we're voting on tonight makes a 2/3 vote, a majority vote to change zoning. So we've got to get to a point where Boston also has to follow the rules that all of us have to follow. And they have to start building more affordable housing, because all their folks are moving to Brockton, and it is driving up our market. So then, you know, a lot of the single moms that used to be living in a lot of these houses can't afford it. And then a lot of our downtown, again, older generation than me, a lot of our downtown has just been turned over to illegal lodging houses. God bless the people that live there, but why was our building code so deficient for so long when we were yelling and screaming? And it isn't just one person that the enterprise chooses to pick on and highlight. It is hundreds of people that have used Brockton as their piggy bank, and they need to have some realization that that property is theirs, but it's not theirs to ruin our community. So they need to start lifting up their standards, and we need to start building more affordable housing in places that are appropriate. And I think that we definitely need a senior rent control. I might be able to go further than that, but I would like to start with some kind of pilot project that if a house is sold and the person is over 60 years old, that they will be given 3 years without a rent increase so they can get on the list for housing, because it takes at least 5 years, 3 to 5 years to get housing. So that would give them some 3-year buffer to be able to figure out where they're going to go. And that's how I would like to start the rent control, because we're seeing one of the biggest growing groups of the homeless people are senior citizens, where they've been renting somewhere 15 years, and then their friend who owned the building sold it to someone else. The next someone else was still nice to them, and then the next someone else is like, nope, we're jacking up the rent, we're doubling it, and they're 85, 75, nowhere to go, work their whole
live on fixed income.
Yeah, fixed income. And so I think at minimum that type of a rent control needs to be brought in for 3 years, and then the city needs to take those 3 years and kick butt on citations.
So you're young, but you're aware that the electorate voted to end rent control when you and I were a little bit younger. But you're still willing to tackle this again, though.
Well, for seniors, I really think I would like to see it for seniors when the house is sold, and they for 3 years only. Maybe allow it to go up 5% every year for 3 years. And then we really need to come down, because a lot of the apartments that people should be living in are boarded up, and people are using those properties as tax breaks on other earnings that they're making outside the city. So we need to start coming down heavy on these folks that are leaving the properties empty. And then we really need to force them to sell if they don't have the ability to care for the property, or to fix it up and get it on the market. No more are we the tax haven for your wealthy, 5-home vacation life. It's just, it needs to be a double effect. And I know that the mayor is starting that, but we need to keep it up over a long period of time.
Thank you, Michelle. Marlene?
But Michelle, so I know what time is it right now?
It's pushing it.
So I'm just gonna stop it there, and so I'm just gonna give you 2 minutes to do your closing. So before you do your closing, I'm just gonna play a devil advocate. So once you said that rent control for only senior, so I will say that the opponent might say that rent control for once is rent control for all. So what will be your response on that?
I'll tell you, I just haven't been convinced that rent control for everybody is an economic model that our society can sustain right now. I'm not saying that I can't get to there, maybe, but it's going to take me educating myself more. And I do know that this senior rental housing control, because I've talked to people that are like, I've got 5 kids, Michelle. How can you say this about not helping me? And I want there to be help through different resources for them, maybe some expanded Section 8 vouchers and things like that. I think housing should be a human right. I don't think that's what I think. And so I think that there should be solutions, and maybe rent control at some point, regulating the private market and increasing it a certain amount. But where we're at right now, I see the desperate need of senior citizens. And I met with Tom Tebow as the president of the Brockton Redevelopment Authority. He told me how long it takes, and he told me that it's one of the worst he's ever seen it for senior citizens in these specific conditions, because Brockton's rental market is so hot now. We have a lot of good investors coming in and fixing up the properties and wanting to increase the rent that maybe the senior citizen had paying $600 for. He knew he was getting a deal, and he understands what's happening, but that doesn't mean he should be homeless either. So it's like, it's your investment. You'll be able to raise it 3% a year or 5% a year for the senior citizen. And after 3 years, the rent control goes away. And maybe in those 3 years, we come up with a system that I can understand better, and that the market will be more acceptable of around rent control. So I'm not saying I'm against it, but what I'm saying is I'm listening to the landlords that are telling me in so many ways that they think it will be very bad, which means to me we need more education of everybody. I don't like rushing into things and then finding out after the fact we're in a real lot of trouble. So I don't mind taking a measured step, but it is hard for families right now. It is.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'm just give you an opportunity to talk to the audience, to tell them who you are, what's your plan for the next coming 2 years. So if you got elected, and so please.
So I want to end by saying I've been really impressed with what Vic is doing in response. Angel and Tracy and the whole team and all the volunteers helping people in need. I want to thank Tony for his work on the Black Lives Matter movement and just equality, as well as you, Marlene, and your leadership at Haitian Community Partners and all the wonderful things you do. I really appreciate it. I try to be a backstop for the community when there's a crisis, just like every single person on this screen and so many of your neighbors. It just so happens that what has transpired in my life around taking on these certain battles against the power plant and closing down the poop incinerator, all are rooted from growing up in a lot of poverty in Brockton and being the only kid in my house, my immaculate house that was always immaculate, with insane asthma, and understanding and learning more about how the environment affects our bodies, and that it's because I'm poor that I get asthma. It's because I'm poor that my uncle has like a trach. I mean, come on. It's because I'm poor that I'm going to die in a nursing home of COVID like my uncle did. And so I have this feeling of justice around being raised in that something about it just stirred something in me. And I'm not saying I have any idea of what it's like to be on this planet as a person of color. I think people of color are beautiful. I love everyone and very beautiful inside and outside, and equal to everybody else. But I feel the justice. I feel the pull for justice. I want us to be able to get rid of corporate greed and the corruption and all the backroom deals that hurt our city and the stupid desal plant. I will not vote to buy the desal plant. We are almost through that contract. I say, why are we going to buy them out of their bad deal? We're already giving them so much money. Let's get away from that white elephant. That's what I think we need to do. So I am someone that's always out for the people. If you want someone that's out for you and always fighting for you and the little guy, I think I'm your choice. I hope that you'll agree. I may not be the best person in the world. I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I'm dogged. I'm really out for the person that needs the help as much as I can be. I'd say it like it is, that some people like it and some people don't. But I always do it from a portion of having a kind heart and a really loving inner feeling about other human beings. And I grew up in a very loud, kind of bully home. So I can be brash. I really don't mean any offense by it, but I just feel this passion. I know Brockton is just as good as people living in Wellesley and Newton, and I just want them to, you know, just accept it and treat us all the same and stop trying to make winners and losers and divide us. And so I'm doing a free mask thing. So if you know anybody that doesn't have any cloth masks, we have some people that sew them, and I know Vic's doing that. I'm doing some we're not going to knock on doors because of COVID, but we are going to be like placing them and walking them off with safe distance. If anybody wants to volunteer or needs help, please call me at 774-274-1344.
Thank you, State Representative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Really appreciate you. And I just want to remind the audience that this town hall is brought to you by MCTV and Haitian Community Partners. And it will be broadcast at BCA as well. So you can see it throughout of the week or next week. And tomorrow we will have a new guest on the show for the town hall. And I say thank you to my co-host Anthony Bishop, Branch, and Angel Cosme. And we will see you again tomorrow at the same time for another town hall. Again, Michelle, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you. Keep fighting for the city of Brockton. We love you and we love that city dearly. Thank you.